Welcome to Daily English with Subtitles, your daily source of stories, lessons, and inspiration. Here, we don't just teach English. We live it, breathe it, and turn it into a bridge that connects you with the world. Every video is a chance to not only learn new words, but to feel them, use them, and let them become part of who you are. So whether you're here to improve your listening, grow your vocabulary, or simply enjoy meaningful stories in English, you're in the right place. If life ever feels overwhelming, I invite you to pause and listen closely to these 18 stories. They might just awaken something deep within you. Life is never a perfectly smooth journey. There will always be obstacles ahead, moments that test your strength, and challenges that block your way. That's why it's essential to learn how to free yourself from difficulties as quickly as possible. On this road filled with struggles, sometimes stopping for a moment to hear meaningful stories can make all the difference. You might realize there are things you need to change and actions you should take, decisions that will serve you well in the future. So take this time, let these reflections sink in, and if you find value in what you hear, remember to subscribe to this channel so you can continue growing with us. Story 1. The true value of a person. Once, there was a beggar who had lost his right arm. His appearance evoked sympathy, and most people who saw him would give him coins or food. One day, he came to the home of a farming family to ask for food. The woman of the house looked at him and said, "First, please move that pile of bricks from the gate into the yard." The beggar was furious. "You can clearly see I have only one arm. Are you mocking my disability?" Without a word, the woman knelt down and began moving the bricks herself, using only one hand. Once she finished, she looked at him and said, "See? I can do it with one hand. Why can't you?" The beggar was silent. Slowly, he began moving the bricks one by one. It took him 2 hours, and sweat soaked his face. When he was done, the woman handed him a white towel to wipe his face and neck. By the time he returned it, the towel was black with dust and sweat. She then handed him some money, not as charity, but as payment for his work. He thanked her over and over, asking if he could keep the towel as a memento. Years later, a well-dressed man in a suit appeared at that same farmhouse. The woman was now older. The man said, his voice full of emotion, "Years ago, I was a beggar. Today, I'm the president of a company. I owe it all to you for helping me regain the dignity I had lost. Without you, I might still be wandering aimlessly." The woman smiled gently and replied, "You earned your own dignity. We all have only one hand in some way. To keep our self-respect, we must respect ourselves, respect those we know, and even respect strangers. That's the real value in life." From that, he learned something profound. Facing misfortune, don't magnify it. Many people carry heavier burdens than you do. If you see your hardships as smaller, you'll overcome them more easily and live with positivity, creativity, and joy. The most precious part of a human being is the heart and the mind. When you awaken the seeds of kindness in your heart, creativity will flow from your mind, and miracles will follow. Even physical limitations, like losing an arm, are just small obstacles if your mindset changes. Think of Nick Vujicic, born without arms and legs. He refused to give in to despair. Instead, he built a successful career, a loving family, and inspired millions around the globe. Character shapes a person's value. Even those with physical challenges, if they cultivate strong character and unyielding determination, can rise to be respected and admired. Story 2. Reverse thinking creates miracles. The biggest difference between someone who succeeds and someone who stays average often comes down to perspective. Successful people know how to look at problems from different angles. When faced with adversity, they can flip the situation and use it to their advantage. Take, for example, a wealthy man who feared his house might be robbed whenever he went out. He thought about getting a guard dog, but worried about the cost of feeding it. After much thought, he found an unusual solution. Before leaving, he would turn off the password on his home Wi-Fi, making it free for anyone nearby. From that day on, every time he left home, there were a dozen people standing outside using his Wi-Fi. The house was never empty and never robbed. That's reverse thinking. Change the angle, and the outcome changes. Here's another. A wealthy man goes to buy tomatoes. The seller says they're $16,000 per kilo. The man picks 2 small tomatoes and places them on the scale, then adds the largest tomato from the pile. The seller scoffs, $8,000. The big tomato alone was heavier than the 2 on the scale, so clearly the price was unfair. But instead of arguing, the man calmly paid and took the big tomato he originally wanted. By shifting his approach, he walked away with exactly what he wanted, avoiding conflict entirely. And here's one more example. A fishing pond charged $200,000 to fish. Most people would fish all day and catch nothing. The owner then promised, "If you don't catch a fish, you'll get a free chicken." Suddenly, the place was full every day, and people happily left with chickens. What they didn't know was that the owner was actually a chicken farmer. The lesson? Reverse thinking. Change the narrative and you still meet your goal. If you're enjoying these stories so far, remember to subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. We've only just begun, and the next lesson might be the one that changes your life. Story 2, continued. Reverse thinking creates miracles. Reverse thinking isn't just about clever tricks. It's about seeing opportunities where others see problems. Take this example. In the United States, legendary investor Charlie Munger, often called the perfect partner of Warren Buffett, was once asked, "How do you find a great partner?" His answer was simple. First, you must be competent and trustworthy yourself. Great partners aren't fools. They're looking for people like them. Another example comes from Nelson Mandela. He was imprisoned for 27 years and endured harsh treatment from prison guards. Yet, when he became president, he invited 3 of those very guards to his inauguration. Standing before the world, he honored them. Why? Mandela explained. When I walked out of prison toward my freedom, I knew that if I didn't leave behind my pain and resentment, I'd still be in prison. Forgiving others, he understood, was really a way of freeing himself. Or consider an old man who loved peace and quiet. Children often played loudly outside his home, which annoyed him. One day, he tried a different approach. He thanked them for brightening the atmosphere, and even gave each child 3 candies. The next day, he gave them 2 candies, then 1, then none at all. Frustrated, the children stopped coming. The old man got his peace back, not by scolding, but by understanding their motivation. Reverse thinking is about seeing the underlying pattern, not just the surface problem. Story 3, anger is instinct, control is strength. We've all had moments where our temper flared. Maybe you were unfairly accused at work. Maybe a reckless driver cut you off. Maybe a child kept asking the same question over and over when you were already exhausted. The natural instinct is to snap. But often, lashing out solves nothing. It can even make things worse. One night, a man was driving to pick up his brother at the airport. At a green light, the vehicle ahead didn't move. Behind him, someone honked impatiently. Lowering his window, the man behind shouted, "What's wrong with you? Hurry up!" The driver could have shouted back. Instead, his brother signaled for him to stay calm. Rolling down the window, the brother said to the angry driver behind. "Sorry, there's a slow-moving tricycle ahead. We'll check what's going on." They got out and found the tricycle driver was on the phone and hadn't noticed the light change. The situation was resolved without conflict. Later, the man asked his brother why he didn't react. His brother said, "Arguing wouldn't have solved anything. If you can hold back your anger, you're already showing wisdom and strength." This control didn't come naturally. It came from years of personal growth and discipline. He had learned that temper is one of the lowest human instincts, and that those who stay calm often move further ahead. Story 4. To keep your good fortune, control your temper. In life, you'll meet people you don't like. You'll face unfair treatment. You'll encounter setbacks. That's normal. But if you can't control your emotions, you risk destroying even the best opportunities. A young delivery worker, in a rush, missed the elevator and kicked it in frustration. Security called the police for property damage. The fine was half a month's salary, far more than the price of simply waiting for the next elevator. One kick, one moment of anger, and a heavy price to pay. Every time you lose your temper, you lose something else too. Peace, respect, or even your future. That's why controlling it isn't just about being polite. It's about protecting your own blessings. Story 5. Learn to let go of anger and open your heart. No one is born with perfect patience. Those who seem calm are often people who've faced life's storms and chosen to respond differently. There's a saying, the smaller the ability, the bigger the temper. The opposite is also true. The greater the ability, the smaller the temper. If you're skilled, some will admire you. Others will be jealous, pointing out your flaws or creating trouble. And if you're less skilled, some will simply look down on you. If you get angry at all of it, you'll never stop being angry. There's a famous exchange between two monks, Han Shan and Xu De. Han Shan asked, "What should I do if people slander me, cheat me, humiliate me, laugh at me, despise me, hate me, or deceive me?" Xu De replied, "Just endure them. Let them be. Show them respect. Ignore them. Wait a few years and see. If you can do that, if you refuse to let anger dictate your life, you've already won." A good attitude can turn ordinary days into extraordinary ones. And since 9 out of 10 things in life won't go as planned, it's better to smile, tell yourself, "It's fine," and move on. If these stories speak to you, don't forget to subscribe. It's a simple click that keeps these lessons flowing your way, and you never know which one will change your day. Story 6. Don't lower your value because of negative thoughts. Henry Frederick once said, "The value of a person doesn't lie in what they have or even what they do, but in who they truly are." Picture this. A speaker walks into a hall, quietly takes a $100 bill from his wallet, and holds it up. Who wants this? Almost every hand goes up. Then he crumples the bill in his hands, throws it on the floor, and stomps on it. Now, who still wants it? Still, almost every hand remains raised. The lesson is simple. Whether crisp and new or wrinkled and dirty, its value hasn't changed. And so it is with us. No matter how many times life knocks you down, no matter who tries to diminish you, your true worth remains. The problem is not that you've lost your value, it's that you've forgotten it. Story 7. The 3 Apple Sellers. In a small town, 3 young men went in search of opportunity. They traveled far and discovered a region with large, sweet red apples. The first young man used all his money to buy the best apples and bring them home to sell for a big profit. The second used half his money to buy 100 saplings and planted them on a rented hillside. The third spent days observing how the orchards were maintained, collected soil samples, studied them back home, and spent 3 years improving a barren hillside before planting imported apple saplings. Years later, the first man was still buying and selling apples, but competition and transport costs ate away his profits. The second had his own orchard, but his apples were average in quality. The third, however, produced the best apples, attracting customers from far away and selling at a premium. The takeaway? Everyone may have the same opportunity, but vision and approach determine the outcome. Short-term gains fade, long-term vision lasts. Story 8. Don't die at 25 and get buried at 75. There's a saying, move too fast and you stumble. Move too slow and you miss the moment. In the 1970s, a young man named Frank in California left school to work in Chicago, shining shoes to survive. Within 6 months, he had saved enough to open an ice cream stand, while still keeping his shoe-shining station outside. Business grew, more branches opened, and at his peak he owned thousands of stores across America. At the same time, another man in Chicago noticed the potential but hesitated. He asked his wealthy father about starting an ice cream business. His father dismissed the idea. A year later, he asked again, and this time his father agreed. But by then, Frank had already dominated the market. Opportunities rarely wait. Speed matters. Hesitation costs. Story 9. Give people a way out and you'll find one for yourself. One evening in a small diner, an elderly man sat near the door, eating quietly. Across from him sat a younger man, glancing repeatedly at the phone on the table in front of the old man. When the elderly man turned away for a moment, the younger man slid the phone into his coat pocket and moved toward the exit. The old man stood up, walked over, and said calmly, "Son, please wait. Yesterday was my 70th birthday, and my daughter gave me that phone. I can't see well, and my back hurts. It must have slipped and fallen somewhere. Could you help me find it?" Flushed with guilt, the younger man reached into his pocket, pulled out the phone, and handed it back. The old man smiled and thanked him warmly. Later, someone asked the old man why he didn't call the police. He replied, "Because I'd lose something worth far more than a phone." Compassion. Story 10. Be good all the way. In a small neighborhood shop, a father and son sold basic groceries. The father had a quiet tradition. Whenever an elderly neighbor came in, slightly confused, asking for 3 ounces of rice, he would take her money, just $5,000, and give her change as if she had paid double. The son, puzzled, asked why. The father explained that she lived alone, survived on a tiny allowance, and often forgot prices. This was his way of helping her keep her dignity without making her feel like a charity case. For years, they kept this up. Then one day, the woman stopped coming. News came that she had passed away. The father received a letter from her lawyer. She had left him her small old house, saying that the kindness of the father and son had been her comfort in her final years. Story 11. It's not a lack of love. It's a lack of understanding. There's an old saying, to know others is intelligence. To understand them is wisdom. Often, we love people in the way we think is best, not in the way they need. And that's where the gap lies. A fisherman's wife loved her husband deeply. Every day, she cooked him the best part of the fish, the tender flesh in the middle, while she ate the head and tail. She thought she was giving him the finest portion. One evening, after decades of marriage, the husband said softly, "All my life, I've never asked for much. But I wish just once you'd cook me the head of the fish. That's my favorite part." Tears filled her eyes. She had always believed the middle was the most delicious, so she'd saved it for him, never knowing that what he wanted was something else entirely. The biggest misunderstanding isn't a lack of love. It's loving someone only in the way you understand. not in the way they truly need. Story 12. Respect other people's secrets. If you expect others to respect your privacy, you must respect theirs. Some people can't help themselves. After a drink or in the warmth of good company, they reveal what was entrusted to them. But once a secret is out, it spreads quickly, and trust is hard to rebuild. In one job interview, the final question on a written test was, list as many confidential details from your previous company as you can. While others scribbled away, one applicant left the answer blank and walked up to the examiner. "I'm sorry," he said, "but even though I no longer work there, I have a responsibility to keep their secrets." The next day, he received a job offer. The letter read, "We value your professional integrity. This is exactly the kind of person we need. Keeping someone else's trust often earns you more than breaking it ever could." Story 13. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Once upon a time, two men lived in the forest. One was named Hungry, the other Perfect. Hungry woke each morning and set out to hunt, sometimes with no clear plan, just the drive to find food. Perfect, however, refused to act until he had mapped out the best possible strategy. Where to find game, the most efficient route, the ideal conditions. Day after day, he planned and refined, while Hungry, through trial and error, managed to find small meals to keep going. One day, Hungry returned with a large kill, enough to share. But when he got home, Perfect had died, still perfecting his plan. Life doesn't reward endless preparation without action. There is no flawless plan. Movement creates opportunity. Hesitation lets it slip away. As Steve Jobs famously said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." Keep your drive alive, and don't overthink yourself into paralysis. Story 14. The professor who missed his perfect match. A professor once obsessed over finding the perfect partner. Through research, he calculated that the highest chance of meeting the right person came at exactly 26.1 years of age, based on probabilities and timing. Before that age, he wouldn't commit, no matter how wonderful someone seemed. After that age, the odds would drop. So, on his 26.1st birthday, he rushed into the city, determined to find and propose to the best woman he met that day. And he did meet someone he liked, only to have her scream for help, thinking he was crazy. The flaw in his calculation? Even if she was statistically his perfect match, he hadn't considered that he might not be hers. Some things in life can't be solved by math. They require human connection, patience, and a little bit of courage that goes beyond the numbers. Story 15. The wisdom of looking back at yourself. We're often told to keep moving forward, to focus on what's ahead, and that's important. The future holds hope. But sometimes you have to pause and look back, because only then can you see clearly where you've come from and where you might be going wrong. An actress once left a rising film career at its peak to return to the stage, the place where her craft began. People called her foolish, but she said, "I didn't become an actress for the money. I became one because I loved the work. The stage keeps me honest." That step back gave her time to sharpen her skills, and when she returned to film, she was even better. Looking back isn't weakness. It's a way to realign with your original purpose, so you don't lose yourself while chasing success. Story 16. A tearful glimpse of life's struggles. A man often noticed a boy standing outside a restaurant with a small tin can, waiting for leftovers from customers. Eventually, on a rainy day, he invited the boy inside. The boy explained that he didn't go to school. He stayed home to help his mother raise pigs. His father worked far away. His mother sold goods at the market. and his small job was collecting leftover food to bring home. Curious, the man followed him one day and discovered that home was a small shack built from scraps. Inside, the boy's father, a double amputee, lay on a mat, and his mother, visibly ill, struggled to move. The man began quietly helping the boy with food and money. But when he later moved abroad, he feared the family might be forgotten. Years later, he returned to find the boy grown into a hard-working young man, still caring for his father. The kindness of strangers had kept them going, and the boy's loyalty to his parents had never wavered. The story is a reminder. Even the smallest act of help can change the course of someone's life. Story 17. Close the door behind you. A former British Prime Minister had a habit. Every time he walked through a gate, he closed it behind him. When asked why, he said, "Because when you close a door, you leave the past where it belongs, behind you." Whether it's a success you're clinging to, a mistake you regret, or a relationship that's over, there's power in letting go. In one small town, a blacksmith owned a vase that turned out to be an antique worth a fortune. The moment he learned its value, he stopped sleeping well, worried it might be stolen. One day, a child accidentally knocked it over, shattering it. Instead of anger, the blacksmith smiled and said, "Now I can rest again." Freedom often comes from what we release, not what we hold on to. Story 18. No one can cry your tears for you. Life is not easy. There will be moments of hardship, betrayal, and exhaustion. But no one else can live your life for you. When you're tired, people might tell you to rest, but they won't pay your bills. When you're sick, they might suggest medicine, but they won't buy it for you. When you're struggling, some will say, "Don't worry," but they won't solve the problem. That's why it's dangerous to rely completely on others. Expect kindness, but don't depend on it. Time is passing whether we act or not. Health, youth, and opportunity don't wait. There are things you cannot delay. Joy, because the moment will pass. Health, because once it's gone, nothing else matters. Education, because late effort can't undo lost years. And gratitude, because one day, the chance to show it will be gone. The 18 stories you've just heard are not just fragments of someone else's life. They're mirrors, reflecting parts of our own journey. Each story is a light, and when you bring them together, they form an entire sky to guide your steps. They remind us that, even if today is stormy, tomorrow still holds a sunrise. No matter how many times you fall, getting up just one more time means you've already won. No matter how loud the world gets, if you hold on to your values and your faith, you'll never lose your way. And above all, the power to change your life is never in someone else's hands. It has always been in yours. If you're feeling lost, remember, every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to your dreams. You don't have to wait for everything to be perfect before you start. Start now. And if these stories have touched your heart, don't keep them to yourself. Share them with someone who might need a little hope, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue finding more lights together. Because who knows, the next story might be the one that changes your life.